The Unbroken Place podcast with Eddy Paul Thomas is a production of Say Something Studios.
And Todd told me, educated me, he was like, Paul, we see in the data and we see in personal experience, those children who are most successful, kindergarten on, are not those who know their A, B's, and C's and 1, 2, 3s. It's the marker of success is a child who is confident, right, in themselves, confident in their skills, right, and confident in being elsewhere, somewhere different. They're confident in engaging. They're confident in their ability to ask an adult for help. They're confident in engaging with their peers, right? That's the marker. And I think he's right. I think the data, I think he's right. I think he knows, right? And in my experience personally as a human, it's been true for me, right?
Welcome back to The Unbroken Place, where it begins and ends with empathy. I'm your host, Eddy Paul Thomas, and this week, my special guests are Paul Buckley and Monica Rollins, two experts in the area of pre-K education. If you think about it, so much of the conversation when it comes to education has been placed on the changes made in college admissions or middle school and high school curriculum changes, which is valid. But we don't often talk about what's going on in the most formative years of our children's lives. So we've dedicated a 2-episode conversation to just that. So let's get started. Well, Paul, Monica, thank you so much for joining us today on The Unbroken Place. I am so excited to have you guys on the show today. We are tackling a topic that I think often, for most people, would kind of overlook, to be completely honest. And quite frankly, unless you are a parent and you've had children who've gone through this process, there would be a tendency to overlook it. But nonetheless, it's one that plays a role in all of our lives, and I'm excited to have you both here. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Happy to be here.
Well, let's start with just an introduction kind of your background and where you guys come from. Monica, if you want to start, just kind of give us a intro.
Sure. My name is Monica Rollins and my pronouns are she, her. I have been in the early childhood education space for, almost 2 decades at this point. My journey started in kind of an untraditional route. I actually started in children's museums, and I loved working with the 0 to 5 crowd, but I realized I didn't really have the theoretical foundation. So I went back to school for my master's in early childhood. That landed me in New York City. And I just fell in love with teaching preschool. And not to say that it was always all rainbows and unicorns. I think that my experience in recent years has really propelled me to and inspired me to start my business, Rooted Wellness Collective, where I work with early childhood programs to integrate yoga and mindfulness as a vehicle to teach regulation. Because as folks who are very familiar with the industry or who have lived it, we have a lot of dysregulation in our field. I think that the adults in the field are dealing with a lot of moving parts, and it's creating a lot of disruption in the structures and the systems and the way that we treat and care for our teachers. And then as a result, and I think coupling that with the pandemic, we're seeing a lot of dysregulation in our young children in the classroom. And so that's what I do. I provide professional development and coaching around how to create a more balanced and well-connected early childhood community.
Thank you. So let's stay there for a second, Monica. if some of our individuals may not be familiar with, the wellness or mental health spaces, what would be a definition that they can work with in terms of dysregulation? What does that mean for
Yes. So basically, our nervous system has a body and brain connection.
them?
And when our body brain connection is disrupted in some kind of way, that means we're dysregulated. So, for instance, when, um, let's say you're sitting in traffic and you just all of a sudden get really triggered and tiniest little things just set you off. Like maybe you're sitting in traffic and then somebody cuts you off and then somebody flips you the bird and all of these things compounded and you just cannot maintain your composure. Um, that would be an example of feeling really dysregulated because even though intellectually your brain is like, I'm an adult, I know how to handle this. Like traffic
Hmm.
is a normal part of life. People flipping me the bird, maybe not as normal, but um, it's something that I know how to deal with. But in that moment, our body is telling us something different. And so when there's a mismatch,
Hmm.
that creates a lot of disruption in our nervous system. And so basically, what happens is our body goes into like fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode.
Hmm.
And the idea is that from like an evolutionary standpoint, the idea is that when we are feeling unsafe or we're feeling threatened, so like back in the day when we, were hunter gatherers and all of these things, like our body is really miraculous and it sends us it sends us signals and our brain and our body talks to each other. And so when we're feeling unsafe, our brain is like, can't get through this. Gotta run away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think it does. So if we were to place this on a child, perhaps your child is great during reading time, like they're normally quiet and engaged, or color time, they're engaged in the task, but all of a sudden they can't handle it. They're all over the place, and something has in their environment has caused them to jump into this fight or flight. Would that be appropriate?
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that, in the classroom experience, what we often find, and I'm sure Paul can relate to this too, transitional time. So when you're moving children from like one part of their day to the next. So let's say we're we're moving from um, free play time to washing hands to snack time. Each one of those little changes in the schedule is like a transition from one activity to the next. And if you are a child who, let's say, didn't get a lot of sleep last night, maybe also has, this is an extreme case, but maybe has some domestic violence, at home, or maybe, maybe you don't even have a home. Maybe you're living in a shelter, or maybe your parents are going through a divorce. And so you're being shuffled between two homes. And so then you show up to school and you're a little 3-year old. You don't necessarily have the language to be able to kind of process through what all of those things are doing to your body. And so, what is the natural course of action? Well, I'm going to have a tantrum because this change is too much for my body right now. I'm dealing with too much change and too much other disruption in other parts of my life, and so I'm just going to melt down, right?
And so you, Paul, are kind of in your background trying to help organizations, schools fill positions that can help with this type of emotional regulation and taking care of not only the teachers themselves but the students as well. Is that correct?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because I fully align with Monica, and I have like so much just on my mind just hearing her talk about that
Yeah.
because for sure, like I agree that there's a lot of dysregulation in general, or there
Mhm.
can be.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as adults, we forget, I'll speak for myself, I can forget how much my regulation impacts my children
Hmm.
around me, whether I'm aware of it or not, right? They really feel the emotion and pick up on your energy. And so, if, for example, I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, I'm going to be dysregulated. If I'm afraid or worried, stressed out, whatever it may be, I'll be dysregulated. And if I take that into a classroom, even unintentionally, it's going to come across, right? My energy is going to really drive the energy of that class sometimes, that group of children, right? And so we think about it from a staffing standpoint, and and just natural power dynamics and natural structures in the professional environment. If I'm the director and I'm concerned about my staff, meaning I'm short on staff, and I'm stressed out and worried and trying to find staff because I'm thinking about the business and the children's well-being and people's view of me and whatever else I may be thinking, right? How are my teachers going to feel? They'll probably feel some of that too, the teachers, right? Some may not, some will. Then who feels it after them? The children, right? So for me, it's all about helping to ensure the environment is as regulated and calm as possible. We're not talking perfection, everyone walking around smiling and this kind of thing. To me, that's not real. That's not real life anyway. We're not talking everyone, happy as a clam. We're talking reasonable, realistic, real life expectations and situations, right? Meaning you have the teachers there you need when you need them. And even that little change, just knowing as a director, I can have my classrooms fully staffed when I need them is like a huge relief, right? It's a huge stressor removed, you know.
And I think that it's not just a huge stressor removed for the directors or the administrative, like the folks in administrative roles. It's also a huge relief for teachers
Yeah.
because if we're, uh, there were some preschools that I've worked at that had so many teachers chronically absent all the time, not fully staffed. Expanding into more classrooms when they weren't even fully staffed with the
Hmm.
classrooms that they currently had. And to me, I'm like, why are you opening more classrooms if you can't even staff the ones you have? But that's a whole other conversation. But to even have that sense of relief as a classroom teacher to know, like, because we have to stay in ratio, and if we don't have enough teachers to fill the classroom, then the floater teacher that goes around and like gives people breaks and things like that has to step in and be the full-time classroom teacher. But then if we need a break to go to the bathroom, also by law, like we're required to have 10 or 15-minute breaks, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And if we can't get those breaks, then where does that leave us? So then we also end up having like bladder control issues,
Yeah.
UTIs, like real life health things because simply because there's not enough people to staff the classrooms. So
Yeah.
it really is a trickle down effect.
Yeah.
And I don't
I
know
could.
about you, Monica. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Eddie.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Like, I don't know about you, but when I was in the classroom and I get into those kind of modes, right? Then it becomes like transition, transition, transition. Like we got to get this day banged out here. Let's get through this day and get these things done. And
Hmm.
and no one likes that because you're so in this idea of like, oh man, I got to make sure this all gets done. I begin feeling like I have no time. I have no, you know what I mean? There's nothing. I feel less. I have less and less and less and less. And
Yeah.
I guys just bang this stuff out. Let's hurry up and get through the day here,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, and no one likes that, right? And it's like I always like the example of like if I'm working on something and someone's like, "Hey, come on, let's go, shut it down, get out of here." I'm not going to do that. I'm not, like, what do you mean? I'm like, hold on, let me finish this, right? And so it's the same for the kids. We start to expect them just to hurry up and
Mm,
wrap up that activity. Let's transition now.
Mm.
That's not realistic, and nor
Yeah.
is it appropriate. Of course, we have to think about the group whole as a whole, right? The group well-being. But if I'm not in the place of remembering and understanding, right, and if I'm not regulated, I'm gonna be like, hurry up, wrap it up, time to move on to the next step.
Yeah.
You miss it becomes product, not process, right?
Mhm.
I focus on the result as opposed to what we're really trying to do is it's the process. It's not the
Right.
product. It's not the schedule actually. The schedule actually doesn't matter, right? Because the structure is there emotionally, not what the term would be, not time wise,
Mm.
right? The structure is there emotionally, cognitively, not because the schedule says. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's so relatable. I bet any one of my listeners right now, no matter what field they're in, can relate to the idea of what a workroom looks like when someone's missing. When if you're in a marketing team and your person who does the graphics is missing, and you're like, oh, I've got all this stuff written out, but I need the graphic person so we can talk through this. And if the COO is missing for the day and the CEO has got to take it, like it's that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you can feel that when somebody who's highly skilled and talented has to step away for a while. So especially if it wasn't prepared for, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't something like a month from now so and so is gone, we're okay, we can put a plan around it. But this, the teachers who go absent because of health, because of life situations, it does cause such disruption.
And
um
think about the children that like this is their like first other adult aside from their parents,
Yeah. Oh,
right? And so
yeah.
right, in some
Yeah.
schools you have one large group. Sometimes they chop it up into primary groups,
Yeah.
right? So I may have 3 or 4 children as my primary group within our group kind of thing, right? And so those 3 or 4 children have now bonded with this adult, right, in a way they never have before with someone else,
Yeah.
right? And now they're gone. That's like that can
Yeah.
that makes a big difference for everybody,
Yeah.
right? It just does.
Well, let's put a pin in that for a minute, because as we've discussed before, we could go down a
Yeah.
rabbit hole on so many of these things. One of the things I want to do, Paul, is give you an opportunity to kind of give people your background, and talk about where you're coming from, because there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of knowledge that you're sharing with us. But let's give people a little bit of background on who Paul is and what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, I think I'm someone that um I don't know, I just feel like my entire life I feel very fortunate to have been around so many different adults, so many different people in general. And as a child and a teenager, I was exposed to lots of different adults in my life who showed me different little things, either intentionally or unintentionally, just from me observing them. And one person who's been really important to my life was, aside from my parents, obviously was my first boss, technically, when I was 13, was like my first mentor, and he really lived the idea and proved to me that it's mistakes are great and don't be afraid of the mistake, right? His whole thing was get out there and do it and do your job and make the mistake and learn from it, right? He was like, if you make the same mistake twice, that's different, but go and make the mistake, right? And he really walked the walk. And so he taught me so much in life. I could go on for days about him, but and then I began working with children when I was 17, initially because my friends and my cousin were working there in this after school care program. And so they said, come check it out. So I did, and I loved it. Right. I loved it. I initially went selfishly to hang out with my friends and cousin and to get a job. And it turned out our boss there, Kelly, is just an incredible person, right? And an incredible mentor as well to all of us. And that's where I really felt at home, was this idea. Like I felt at home in the environment of helping others. Back then, I didn't have the words for this idea of like I'm helping others and like being of service to my community kind of thing. I didn't have
Hmm.
those words, but I felt it. I felt it and I could see it. And those families were just so fantastic to all of us and so appreciated us being there. And so I got to work preschool in the morning and after school care in the afternoon. And I just felt so honored to be welcomed into these people's lives. You know, one guy gave me a car.
What?
One one of the dads,
Nice.
one of the dads, he was like, "Hey, Paul, man, I got this old car. He's like, I don't need it. Do you want it? So the guy gave me a car,
Man.
right?
Wow.
I'm like, yeah. And it's funny. I saw him in my neighborhood. I haven't seen him in like 10 years, 15 years, and I saw him in my neighborhood at the corner store. Bumped into him, and they got to FaceTime with his daughter, who I used to watch, and she's grown up now and married, and it was really sweet. Um, and I worked in after school care and preschool for a long time, and then I got burned out. Right, I experienced burnout in the classroom, working for a corporation that was concerned with the bottom line more than they were concerned with the teacher and family's well-being. And I'm always careful to say that you're allowed and should focus on your bottom line as a business. I get it, right? You're supposed to make sure you're making money, so you're allowed to do that. You should do that. Um, but when it's preschool, it feels different. I think you can focus on the bottom line, and you can focus on your teacher's well-being. And I didn't feel like that was happening. I felt like we were just being used and abused, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And so after it was only took 2 years for me in that company as a lead teacher. And so I got out of there because the girl at the time that I was dating, my girlfriend at the time, her like brother's cousin's friend kind of situation, was hiring at this large biotech firm, the largest in the world, and the company that's credited with creating biotech, basically. And so it was a good opportunity. And so I got a job as a temporary employee, working on a manufacturing line, doing something that I'd never done before and even thought of before. But I was so burned out, um, I had tried it. I went and gave it a shot. And it was not lost on me that I was a temporary employee doing manual labor, and I was being paid more than I was caring for children. Right off the bat, I'm making way more money. Right
Yeah.
off the bat,
Yeah.
right? Just not even an interview, barely an interview. Just like, oh, okay, can you do this? Great, you're in. And I'm making more money already. So I was kind of pissed about that at the same time. I was like, man, this is like messed. That wasn't. But then I ended up, I love to learn, and I love the team environment,
Yeah.
and so I stayed and got promoted very quickly, and they taught me a lot. Again, I was fortunate to have a number of uh, adults there, people older than me, right, who were fantastic managers, and gave me a shot. Like Dante gave me a shot. He took a big risk on me and gave me a big promotion. He didn't have to do that. And I'm forever indebted to Dante and Kelly and Ted and even Norm. Norm was my kind of mentor peer, and I got to learn a lot. I learned all about process improvement and 5S, and got my Six Sigma green belt, and I did all these different things, with the corporation. But most importantly, what I got to do was work with people. They put me in charge of adults, quote unquote, in charge. I was managing teams of people, and I loved it. I loved it. That was my favorite part of the job, was meeting all these people, getting to know them, right, helping them work through their career and their thoughts on their career. And I really was proud of the fact that, I'm not sure how I can say it, but I felt like it was the first time they got to experience a manager who cared to hear about their life, and and it was an environment they weren't used to, where the boss was like, oh, cool, let's like get you to a new job. Like, you want to leave here? Cool. Let's get you out of here. Like, I empathize
That's
with the fact
incredible.
that you want to do
Yeah.
something else. Like, that sounds good to me. I don't mind. I want you to be happy and calm, right? I want you to know it's okay. Like, you're allowed to be who you are, right? And so my conversations always with people were, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? But first, I would say, if you don't want to stay here, I'm not insulted. If this is a stepping stone for you, you're not hurting my feelings or insulting me, because I'm a manager here. Like, I like it here. You don't? That's okay. Let's get you to where you want to go. Just let me know. So we'd spend a lot of our time doing that, getting them trained in certain things, getting them conversations and meetings, other departments, right? Finding ways to help them ingratiate themselves over there, right? And so anyway, so it turns out that my my background working in preschool and my background working in process improvement ended up being a perfect marriage of skills to kind of be one of many trying to solve this problem in preschool, which is getting teachers and schools connected in a way that matters to them, not in a way that's imposed upon them.
Yeah.
Like I think a lot of processes out there do. I think there's a lot of kind of standard processes that are imposed upon the teachers in the schools in a
Yeah.
way that's focused only on that bottom line. And I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's necessary and nor helpful in our world.
Yeah.
So I instead started the platform I have now that is designed to help preschools and teachers connect on their terms.
I loved kind of going on that journey, just trying to. I'm glad you kind of helped me figure out how did he transition from this to like it totally makes sense now. But I was just like,
Yeah.
that is a very interesting transition. But I'd love to kind of go with that because I know that a majority of people who are listening right now, when most people hear the word preschool, they're probably thinking of like finger painting and story time and nap mats. But what probably potty training. What what is the reality of early childhood education today that most people never really see?
Oof, it's a great question. I don't want to keep talking, Monica, but I'm going to talk. But I think yeah, I think, but it's hard. You know, it's just it's one of those things where when you're in that environment and in that classroom, it's such an incredible, like, fantastic life. It's such an amazing thing, right? And I think people maybe they didn't go to preschool or they forgot or they don't think about it or whatever, right? But it's like what people don't see maybe or and are forgetting is that you too were that age at one time, right? Everyone in the world at one time was that age, and everyone had to have someone there, hopefully, helping them through and helping their brain develop. And I think that's like maybe the biggest gap is that for whatever reason, people don't identify preschool with human brain development,
Yeah.
right? Our human brains develop all the same way, right? And our brains, right? So it's human brain development, and the human brain needs certain things. And in preschool, your brain is getting those things. So without the preschool environment, right, without a village helping to grow little humans, how do you expect that brain to develop?
Yeah.
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 And I would go even further and say that oftentimes I think early childhood is looked at as like glorified babysitting. Like that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, like with professionals who are in the field. And I think oftentimes different parents will like they have their idea of what that means, glorified babysitting. But the reality is that, and this is science, that like around 90% of our brain develops before the age of 5.
Oh
So,
yeah.
like, the fact that literally preschool teachers, early childhood educators, home visitors, family child care providers, we are brain architects, right? Like, we are helping these children build and develop out their their brain. And within, like, not to get, too intellectual, but there are 5 domains of learning that
Mhm.
happens typically, which is this idea of approaches to learning. So you might have a child who, and even as adults, like maybe we like to look at things from a very intellectual sense. So maybe those are the kids that are like really into puzzles and trying to like put things together and try and figure out the right placement of things. Maybe you're very like boisterous and creative and you like to move your body a lot and you express yourself and try and figure out the world through body movement. Or maybe you're really artsy and the way
Mhm.
that you process the world is by expressing yourself through art. And then we have cognitive development, which is basically all the brain stuff. So it's like executive functioning, it is memory, it is learning how to process things, it's learning this idea of like right from wrong. It's all of those things that require us to be like fully fledged, like cognitively aware adults. And then we have language and literacy, and certain children, um, to understand language and literacy development, I think oftentimes adults in the world who are not in this profession only think of language and literacy development through verbal language. And there's so much more to language development before you get to that place.
Yeah.
One of them being, babies and infants and young toddlers, like they might not necessarily be verbal, but they're still communicating
That's right.
through body gestures and body movements and eye contact and using, they might notice a sound off in the distance. So they might reach their hand in front of them to try and figure out where that is. Like that's language development, right? And then we have, what is the other stuff? Physical development. So children are learning how to move their bodies in space and figure out, like, does my whole body fit in this small area? How do I walk across this stone sidewalk without falling over? How do I do a cartwheel? There's like these incredible things that children are trying on for the first time, figuring out, discovering, and they need that space, that environment with professionals who are trained, who have gone to school, who have done the training, who understand child development in a way that the average Joe or Josephina doesn't. And this is a profession. We go to school, we get degrees, we are not just babysitters putting your child in front of a screen all day. Like we're literally helping your child build their brain.
Don't go anywhere. The Unbroken Place will be back in just a moment. What if the clarity you've been searching for isn't out there, but already within you? I'm Eddy Paul Thomas, life and leadership coach. I work with purpose-driven people who are ready to lead boldly, live intentionally, and grow from the inside out. Whether you're at a crossroads or leveling up, coaching can help you move with focus, confidence, and wisdom. This is your time. Visit onsecondthoughtstudio.com to get started.
Looking for a way to reconnect and reset? Awaken Pittsburgh offers free guided meditations open to everyone, online and in person, on the first and third Wednesday, second Saturday, and third Monday of each month. Each session includes guided practice, reflection, and space for questions and support. No experience needed. Sign up on Eventbrite and join the community.
Imagine a place where the untold stories of Black missionaries are amplified, honored, and celebrated. A place that bridges the legacy of the people of the way with the powerful missions work of today's African diaspora. Welcome to the Black Missions Museum, a digital project dedicated to preserving the voices, culture, and legacy of Black missionaries across the globe. But we need your help to bring this vision to life. Your support makes a difference. Join us in this mission by donating today. Just click the link in the show notes to give and be a part of history. Together, we can inspire future generations and keep the legacy alive. At the Say Something Studios division of Elevate One Consulting, we don't just build websites, we craft unforgettable digital experiences. Imagine a place where design, development, UX, SEO, and management harmonize to elevate your brand to unprecedented exposure. A place where your website is not just seen, but felt, experienced, and remembered. Our expert team, equipped with unparalleled marketing insight, turns the everyday task of website design and management into a seamless, empowering journey. With Elevate One, you're not just launching a website, you're embarking on a transformative business adventure. We meticulously design every aspect, from intuitive navigation to stunning graphics, ensuring your digital space authentically represents your business ethos. Ready to transform your online presence into a thriving digital masterpiece? Visit us now at www.elevateoneconsulting.com and start your journey to digital excellence. Elevate One Consulting. Innovate, grow, elevate. And we're back. Right.
That's why, like, in some ways, it's like, excuse me, but like, yeah, like, damn right,
Right.
there's finger painting and nat mats, right? Because like that's not some nothing. That
Yeah.
child gets to build their sensory ability, right? And there's
Yes.
like Monica was saying, you have to build all that for your brain. So yes, they get to feel that pain, they get to smell it, right? They get to spread it around, and yes, they got to take a break. Their brains got to sleep, right? Go take a break, right? Like, so,
So do
like,
we. So do the teachers. We need some
yes,
quiet
yeah,
time too.
you know what I mean? Yeah, and yes, there's potty training involved, right? Yeah, because like this human is being shown how to live in our world, in our society, right? And are you going to do it? You're not going to do it? Well, someone's going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? And someone who knows how to do it, and someone who cares to do it, and someone who cares for that human to clean them and make sure they're comfortable, right? And calm and fed and rested, right? That's what they're doing,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like, there's so much happening in that preschool classroom, like Monica's saying, that our world needs. And the funny thing is, the world expects adults to behave a certain way. Well, how are they supposed to know? You expect it, yet you don't want to teach it.
Yeah.
And the thing that's wild, Paul touched on this a little bit before, but something for parents to be aware of is that you would think that a job this important, a profession that requires so much training and nuance, for caring and educating for young children under 5 years old, we should be, I mean, if we're architecting the brain, like, shouldn't we get a brain surgeon salary? We don't. And the thing that's even more wild is that the younger you teach, so if you're in an infant room, a lot of centers will take children as young as 6 weeks old. 6 weeks. And those teachers that are caring for those little tiny babies get paid the least amount in our field.
Yeah.
Which makes zero sense to me, because it requires even more nuance and more care and more attention and intention.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like the younger you go, the least that you make. So I don't know,
which is incredible to me. I mean, being a parent and having 2 kids who've gone through that process, you learn so much. Like, if you're a curious parent, and I try not to place judgment on parents. Parenting is very different today than it was when I was coming up. I'm in my 50s, which, I tend to date myself every time I come on this podcast. But you could get away with one income in the 70s and 80s. You could. There's no way you can do that today with one child, let alone 2 or 3. So both parents have to work. And so this is a absolute need when we're talking about preschool. And I mean, as you said, as young as 6 weeks. I mean, some people have to get back to work so they can afford the life that they're living. But I guess I say this as a parent, being curious and learning from those teachers and understanding, oh yeah, they went to such and such university. They actually got a degree. This isn't glorified baby. Like, I learned this as a parent, not because I was, disinterested in what those people were doing, but literally I was blessed to have my children be involved with highly qualified people who have learned, everything in terms of what my children needed at that time. And it enabled me, having those in-depth discussions and doing research myself and learning all these things enabled me to have conversations later on. This is a really wild story, just kind of looking at the loop here. It enabled me when I was consulting another organization they were putting together a conference, and they were talking about, well, we want to have an adults thing and we want to be able to provide for those families that have children. So what are we going to do with those children? And as we were talking through, it wasn't anything, for me to say, you know what, we have to think about this, because these kids, whether they're, 2, 3, 4, 5, this might be their first experience outside of mom or dad learning emotional regulation or social skills, empathy, resilience, definitely conflict resolution. Like, I haven't had to share anything in my life, and you want me to share this truck with this kid now? Like, these are all, potentially brand new things for them. So my question to you guys is, should we stop thinking about preschool as simply school readiness and maybe start thinking about it as human readiness?
Yeah. Let's get into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay. There's so much here. So there's a lot flying around, I would say, in the interwebs around this idea of like, we're so compliance heavy. And, I worked for 5 years in the Head Start world, which is a federally funded program. Initially, it was created to lift families out of poverty, and Head Start provides comprehensive wraparound services in health, nutrition, child development, family engagement, parenting, the whole 9 yards. And while I understand the need to monitor and make sure that government money is being spent in the ways that it should, I also think that we are losing sight of childhood a little bit. I think that we've become so dependent on the checklists and the compliance and the regulation. And Paul's shaking his head because like ratios are part of that. So I'll give you an example around this. I worked at a school where they were under a lot of heat because there were a lot of findings from the state licensing board. And so they had to prove that they were getting their act together. Like little things like we would get a finding because like one outlet, like the outlet cover had fallen out or something like that. And then there's more egregious things like, kids getting lost in the school and, things like that, which obviously like that's like,
That counts.
yeah, that counts.
That counts. Yeah.
But tiny little things where I'm like, why are you breathing down our necks around this? And the other thing that was really big was this idea of ratios. So I worked in a 2-year-old classroom, and the ratio in the state of Colorado was there had to be 2 teachers in the classroom at all times for supervisory reasons, safety reasons, for up to 10 children. If you had more children than that, then you needed a third adult. If, let's say, for instance, one teacher needed to go to the bathroom, God forbid, we have bladders and we need to pee, but the bathroom is down the hall. So therefore, the teacher would have to leave, and then all of a sudden, you're out of ratio. So you have 1 teacher to 10 children. So you'd have to get on the walkie-talkie, call somebody to say, hey, I need somebody to cover me. And maybe that person is out. Maybe there's not enough teachers to cover you. So then you're over here. And as women, I mean, I'm just going to be very frank. We also get our periods. And so it's not just about holding the pee.
Mhm.
It's also about taking care of that as well. And it's so demoralizing to like have to announce yourself on a walkie-talkie to take care of these human things that we have to go through. And I understand safety and supervision for sure. That is paramount when we're, caring for and educating young children. And at the same time, at what cost? At what, to what end? And the other thing I will say is when I first got into the field, I was stoked. I was like, are you telling me I get paid to play all day long? Like I'm an adult and I get paid to hang out with these kids and play and watch them learn and grow. And I get to mold them and like be an example. And somewhere along the lines, I don't think a lot of teachers out there nowadays feel that way. I mean, I've since been out of the classroom, but if you go into any Facebook group or you look at anything that people are posting on LinkedIn about being a preschool teacher now, I would say the grand majority are saying, I have so much paperwork. I have to do X, Y, and Z assessment. I have to do this checklist. I'm so burned out. I don't have enough time in the day to do everything. And it's like, when did that become the norm instead of getting paid to play? Because it's childhood.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
Yeah.
Paul, can I pass the buck to you? The Buckley?
Yeah.
The Buckley to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because one of the things that finally set me off to leave the classroom at that time was we were in a corporate preschool, meaning we have a corporate client. So we're in like the first floor of their building, right?
Okay.
And so it's an enclosed campus. You have the badge in, badge out. The outdoor environment is walled off and fenced off, right? So there's no campus to leave, right? You're not leaving campus. Now, we would sometimes take them on a walk in the like business park campus, right? And so we would sign them out. We had a sign in, sign out sheet. We'd sign out as leaving campus. We'd sign back in, right, when we got back in. One day, someone, not even at our campus, a different campus, a child got out of the school, right? They got out of the enclosed environment. As a result, corporate says from now on, right, everybody has to do anytime the child leaves the classroom, you have to sign them in, sign them out. I thought it was a joke, right? I'm going, what do you mean?
As in like when you leave to go to your special, when you leave to go to the bathroom.
Luckily, the bathroom was inside with our little
Okay.
area.
Jeez.
But anytime we opened the door from our classroom to our enclosed, walled in playground, we had to sign them out and
That's
sign them in. Right. And so I really thought it was a joke. I was talking to my assistant director. I was like, we're not really doing this, right? I'm not really signing them out to go here. Am I? Just, oh, yeah, we are. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So, and
Wow.
so, and I think what Monica's speaking to is this kind of larger thought of a larger conversation around our educational system in general,
yeah.
Mhm.
right? And like you're saying, Eddie, this idea of being school ready.
Yeah.
Now, for me, when I hear school readiness, I think about children leaving preschool, going to elementary school, right? And the preschool has to ensure that they do their job as best they can, that the preschoolers leaving X admissions, right, are going to meet the requirements of the admissions of those kindergartens, right? Whether it's a school district, a private school, independent school, parochial school, whatever it is. And so they do their best to have them prepped, right? And by understanding the requirements for the admissions, right? Now, we all know the admissions process is opaque, and every school can have whatever requirements they want to bring them
Right.
in. And so it's a moving target, so you can't try and aim for that target, right? If it's a public system, the school district, the school district, what the district requires because they have to state it, right? So again, you do your best to ensure they're there. But even saying that out loud, personally, and the teachers I know, you don't do your best to hit that moving target. you do your best to ensure they're socially and emotionally ready to be somewhere new and different. And there's a friend of ours who's a preschool director and an author. He was a co-author on a textbook, including all, the inclusion model for preschool. Todd. I remember talking to Todd years ago. Todd and my wife got their masters together too in ECE. I remember talking to Todd years ago about this idea. And Todd told me, educated me. He was like, Paul, he's like, we see in the data and we see in personal experience, those children who are most successful, kindergarten on, are not those who know their A, B's, and C's and 1, 2, 3s. It's the marker of success is a child who is confident, right, in themselves, confident in their skills, right, and confident in being elsewhere, somewhere different. They're confident in engaging. They're confident in their ability to ask an adult for help. They're confident in engaging with their peers, right? That's the marker. And I think he's right. I think the data. I think he's right. I think he knows, right? And in my experience personally as a human, it's been true for me, right? And so, and I see in my children too. My boys have gone to different schools. So I have 3 boys. Well, not all 3 of them. My youngest is still in preschool, but my oldest and middle have gone to different schools. And that's what we talk about and focus on is their social and emotional abilities and readiness, even at 10 and 7. So I think you're exactly right, Eddie, that this idea of readiness for preschool, it's human readiness. It's world readiness. It's not school readiness, because every school is going to be different. You're going to move schools anyway, right? And you can't aim for a moving target. The target is this human ready to be out somewhere different now, to interact with other humans, right? Can they interact with other humans?
And I think too that is why it's so important for children to have early experience in like a group educational setting.
Mhm.
Because it's one thing, you know, if you are privileged enough to have, you know, stay-at-home parents or a nanny that takes care of you one-on-one, you're still, you know, building relationships and building trust with adults, and you're still probably getting, you know, a similar type of learning that's happening. And also it's so necessary to be in a group dynamic when you're in those young years, because the only way to get better at and to grow that ability to like empathize with others and to share and to collaborate and to wait your turn, and you need other people in the room with you. You need peers to be able to practice and try on those things. And, you know, I think one of the other pieces around this idea of like compliance and being school ready versus human ready is that we become so obsessed with ensuring that children's developmental areas are like fully developed and meeting the milestones, and that they can say their ABCs and do their 1, 2, 3s by the time they reach kindergarten. The reality is that primary and above, they have plenty of years to learn how to do all these quote unquote academic things that get them ready for college and la la la. But like in the younger years, the best way to teach and experience social skills and social emotional learning is through play. And when you become so entrenched in this assessment compliance heavy type programming in a preschool, you lose that like the miracle and the magic of play in younger years. I was just talking with a new friend of mine literally last night, and she's taught between pre-K and kinder for her whole career. She also has a background in special ed. She just joined a new school district. This is somewhere in suburban Illinois. And she was like, I just started at this school this year, and I just wish that my kindergarten was more play-based. Because the other thing that we're encountering right now is that and this is even before the pandemic, and maybe Paul, you can speak on this too, is this idea that like we are adultifying young kids at an earlier age. It's trending earlier and earlier. And
Yeah.
so the expectations, these academic skills, the expectations that we're putting on these younger kids are scaling like younger and younger. And so while the norm used to be more play-based kindergarten to kind of transition them into like a bigger school, higher expectations academically, at least the kindergarten classrooms had a little bit of play. They were set up for that type of environment. And now we're seeing a lot more individualized desks.
Yeah.
And more worksheets. And, you know, Eddy, I see you like having big feelings about this.
Oh,
Tell us.
huge. I'll share a little bit. I appreciate you paying attention to my facial
Because
cues
I'm
there.
attuned, right? I learned these
Right?
skills.
Exactly. There's that
I'm a
empathy
professional.
component
That's
there.
right there. Yeah.
It's so interesting because I see things from so many different perspectives, and one of them is we'll come back to the social emotional part. One of the things that I did early on, I used to work with kids in a training like sports training camp. And it was fun. I used to be a college basketball player, used to coach high school and college. And during the summers, I would host this thing where I would have kids come out and we'd work on different skills. And when it came to basketball, it was very clear to me who were the homeschooled children versus those who were socially engaged with other kids on a regular basis. And they may have been very smart, they may have been very compassionate, kind, all those different things. But when it came to competition, you could see the difference in how they engaged with other people because they were used to being the star, mom and dad said, I'm the best basketball player, I'm the best football player, I'm the best whatever. But then they came and saw these other athletes, these other student athletes. And it was just like, I don't know how to, I don't know how to deal with that. How do I deal with somebody who's just as good, if not better than me in a given skill? And so they struggled mightily in the beginning of the camp. And it took a lot of coaching and helping to build them up to help them essentially emotionally regulate during those times to get better at being a team player, sharing the ball, so to speak, not only on the court but off the court. Just some of the things that we did socially to help those kids adapt. But I also look at some of the things that we do because I'll admit to our listeners here, I initially went to school to be a teacher. I was going to be a social studies teacher, and I got in, saw the factory-like way in which things were set up and said, no way. I'd later go on to teach in college, but the idea of there are too many, gosh, I'm going to say this, and this is going to get a lot of people pissed. I'm sorry.
Do it.
I saw a lot of correlations between the way our prison systems are set up and our school systems.
That's right.
And as I heard you talk about the kid, we have to sign them out and we have to, I was like, oh my gosh, why don't you just put like a little, a band on them that lets you know exactly where they are at all. Like what?
That's right.
It just so many correlations and the lack of understanding how play helps them develop. Yet you look at other countries, I could look at so many different countries that do it differently, that allow kids to play so much more, that don't do homework, that incorporate a lot more autonomy in their learning, that take into account the kids have different skill sets, that maybe this person is I think that if I'm saying it correctly, it's the theory of multiple intelligences, where an individual is extremely skilled in this area, but not so much in this area. So let's lean into this area instead of trying to fit them in this box where they need to know everything about everything. But yeah, as I heard you guys, I'm not going to say I was triggered, but holy cow, I was just like, God, I've seen all of that, and it's infuriating to think about
So
where our
Yeah.
kids could be versus where they are.
I will also
Yeah.
to piggyback off of that, Eddy. So the prison comparison is very real, and I'll bring in another stark statistic, which is so I'm going to rewind a little bit, which is it's so important for our early childhood educators to be well versed in nervous system literacy and regulation skills for themselves, and to have the understanding of how to develop that sense of regulation in the young children. Because what often happens in early childhood settings where you are dealing with a lot of what we perceive to be behavior challenges, which is these tantrums, meltdowns, biting, kicking, spitting, hitting, all of these things, which for somebody who is well versed in this, I know that that type of behavior is communication. It's telling us this child is feeling very disrupted. They feel outside of themselves. And the only way they know how to respond is through these more physical means. The reality is they're searching for safety. They're searching for somebody to tell them you are safe, you are loved, you are cared for. Now, what happens is if you're a teacher on the receiving end of this, you're going to probably get very triggered yourself too. Like you don't want to be a punching bag for 3-year-olds. But the thing is that what a trend that we often see is I've talked to countless directors. I was just on the phone with a program that I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole actually, but what they reach for instead of figuring out how to build up the resilience and build up those social emotional skills to be able to find a sense of calm after the storm, if you will, they'll just end up oh my God, I just lost my word. They'll end up disciplining the child, sometimes to extreme senses of that they get expelled from the school or suspended from the school at the age of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5.
Right.
And what the research shows is 2 things. Number 1 is historically, the children that are getting disciplined in that way are oftentimes Black and brown boys. And when Black and brown boys are getting suspended and expelled in preschool, which already is just an insane notion,
Yeah.
the likelihood that they end up in prison later on in life is extremely high. I don't know the actual percentages, but it's a real thing. And so to have these discussions around how are we treating our preschool teachers? These are the earliest experiences that young children are having with school and being able to have other trusted adults in their life. It's imperative that we train teachers and administrators that that level of discipline is simply not an option because you're literally feeding the preschool to prison pipeline.
Yeah.
And like, maybe your listeners they're going to feel like I ruffled some feathers with saying that, but that is the actual reality. And so what do we do with that?
Yeah. And I think to be clear, what then people try and do is say, oh, well, then you let them do whatever they want. And then they learn no structure. And we're not saying that.
No.
Monica's not saying children can do whatever they want, quote unquote. No one's ever saying that.
Yeah.
What we're saying is when a child needs support, you support them and help them grow through. You don't just try and shut it down. Again, just like as an adult, if you're feeling sad and someone comes and says, stop it, get out of here, is that going to help you get through that? Right? Not at all. You're not going to learn anything. You're not going to feel connected, and you're not going to appreciate it, are you? Right? And as an adult, you may fight back. As a child, they cannot fight back, can they? And they have no clue even what's going on potentially in their young mind, right? And so I think about the book Raising Cain, and the psychologist wrote in regards to raising males in our society, right? And they talk about the prefrontal cortex, of course, not developing until you're 25, first of all,
Right.
and they talk about how they did studies. They went and talked to men who are incarcerated, and they talked to them about their life as a child and what got them to this point potentially. And they said to a man, they can remember a time when their feelings were hurt. And ever since then, they've felt defensive,
Mm,
right? They present as offensive, but they've been defending themselves, they feel like, as their feelings were hurt long time ago.
mm,
And they were never shown or taught emotional literacy,
mm,
right? And so they've been defending themselves the entire time. And so in this book, they say the data also shows that simply giving children the word for the emotion, just the name of the emotion, decreases your potential, right, of doing anything that you would regret later. Just simply having a name for the emotion,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's why we're not saying people are quote unquote allowed to do whatever they want. No one's saying that, right? We're saying that if we all can pause and remove our ego from the situation, right, and not take things personal,
Mm-hmm.
right? Can we empathize? Can we pause? Can we remember what we're here for? Can we remember that together we win? Can we just interact together, right? Can we just be humans together? Can I help this little human? Can I do that, right? As a basketball coach, as a preschool teacher, whatever it is, can I help this human work through here? Can I connect? Because
Yeah.
humans need connection.
Yeah.
We need time together. And we have to remove our ego to be able to do that, right? We have to be able to work together and remove our ego, our personal concern, our personal fear. And that's hard to do. And if as a child, I'm not taught that, now I'm an adult, right? So it's like, how am I then expected to do it for other humans, right? So that's why I think, again, why this early childhood field is so important.
Yeah.
Because it starts from the beginning, right? If we're not working to raise humans together, then what's left?
Yeah. Yeah. I would ask our listeners, just as an example of something that Paul and Monica are talking about, I would ask our listeners to think about a time recently where you started to feel cranky and upset and mad, and somebody who cares about you said, "Are you hangry?
Exactly.
Did you skip lunch? Oh yeah, gosh, I need a snack. I need," and immediately within 10-15 minutes of eating, you feel better. You drink a little water, you're a little less shaky. Ooh, okay, I can deal with that. Well, I can tell you that as a coach back in the day, when I'd have these kids at camp, I would notice some of the fights that would start to pick up. And I could almost immediately say to the staff, the guys that are working with me, it's 11:30. It's pretty close to lunch. My guess is these kids need something to eat. Let's go ahead and call this, this skill off right now. Get them fed, give them a minute to regulate, and we'll see an improvement. Every time, without fail, it was always, ooh, okay, they're hungry, or there's something else going, and that's just hunger. That's just the hunger deal.
yeah.
This isn't, mom and dad are arguing at home, or, somebody stole my lunch, or none of that other stuff that kids are doing. It's just hunger. So imagine, just as you said, Monica, having a word for, ooh, I'm noticing what's going on in my body. The somatic, education here. Okay, when this happens, I'm hungry. Hey, Mr. Thomas, could you get me a sandwich? Can I go get a snack? Like, it changes the conversation in the room with the educator and the child. Hey guys, thank you for listening to part 1 of our conversation on pre-K education. I know it was just getting juicy, but I promise you, come back next week and listen to the conversation with Paul and Monica, where we dive into more of the teacher's experience. We spent quite a bit of time on the children and their experience, but now we're going to, jump into the teacher's experience. If you want to learn more about Paul and Monica and what they do, make sure to check out the show notes. And gosh, it's so good. Don't miss it. Come back next week. We'll see you on Wednesday. The Unbroken Place podcast is presented by Eddy Paul Thomas, LLC, and sponsored by Elevate One Consulting and OK on Second Thought Coaching. The show is produced by Say Something Studios. Learn more about our sponsors and producer in the show notes. The show's music is performed by Kesta. Thank you for being a part of the Unbroken Place podcast community. Look for an ongoing conversation on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And make sure to sign up for our newsletter called Things I'm Rethinking at eddypaulthomas.com. Until next time, one love.